You know, movies like this always get my attention right off the bat. The first time I heard anything about this was while watching Attack of the Show, the old G4 TV version on cable, DirecTV and Comcast and whatnot. I vividly remember that promo for it and how the style and the color palette came across from the clips they were airing. It wasn't an exact trailer, they were showing like clips while doing VO over it. I think it was Adam Pereira and Candace Bailey, shout out, one of them. What's crazy is I didn't even see this movie until maybe 6 or 7 years later. And when I did, I liked everything but the ending. Upon the rewatch though, the ending made more sense to me. Still not the way I would have ended it. This movie shows a lot of guts and makes the bold choice of fading to red and smashing to black often throughout the movie. Can be a little jarring or a little intense at times, especially when the synthesizer drone is on, going with that red just hanging on, you know. At times this movie reminds me of Cube, which is another older film that is inside of my media fandom. I'm sure others are very well aware, and I know there's like 7 after them and none of them are near as good as the first one. You know, it also reminds me of Stranger Things and a book I read a long time ago called The Stargate Conspiracy, and it was about remote viewing and how people were projecting what was going on in different countries and even on different planets, such as Mars. I am a sound guy more than anything, so the score is just a filthy synth work for me at times. And at other times, it's just way too much drone on top of drone. It's like layered drones on and on and on for very long segments. Maybe it's not as important of a detail to other people, or maybe other people don't even notice it. I think the lead of this movie is just absolutely incredible. That guy has the chops to be so terrifying. And the wife was saying he looked like Christian Bale at times, and I didn't see it at first. Actually, I thought he looked like Ted Bundy with some of these freaky smiles and whatnot. But then I couldn't unsee it. Kinda did look like Christian Bale in some of these angles and lightings. The acting by him and the girl who plays Elena, they're both so intentional and convincing, and I really do appreciate that from it, because the movie itself feels like a foggy dream or something, a fever dream maybe. There are shots that linger a little too long, combined with the color choices and sound design left me like unsettled at times during this rewatch. I do believe this go round was so much easier to understand, but you definitely have to be patient for the experience and for the story to play out. There is so much noise used in the film, and it shows its age through it depending on what kind of TV you're watching on. At times it almost looks like they were doing some kind of next level ahead of its time effect on the film, using certain film grain and noise on top of these lush colors. But what would happen, it would start pixelating, so it would start looking like an actual shroom trip, but it wasn't like the effect made it unbearable. With that said though, man, like even with patience, this film can certainly challenge you. I feel like the director kind of got lost at times in their own art, forgetting the audience along the way, you know? Because some moments they feel big, but they don't do much of anything when put up against the time it takes for it to pass and what the score is, meaning the sound and sound design, is going along with it. I would be able to understand one feeling like film has scenes that are unwatchable, either because way too much noise was used, meaning visual noise, or too much exposure, too much light, too much white, or unnecessary strobe effects. But movies like this don't bother me. I look at Lighthouse and Pi, for example, which are also black and white and heavy on certain filter effects and lighting. I know all 3 movies are very different from each other, but nonetheless, that visual aesthetic that the director chose to use here doesn't really negate the film for me. I just kind of blur my eyes on the strobe effects and let it go. The character arc of the villain is just mesmerizing to witness, man. His name is Michael Rogers. He played this character to become so enthralling and confusing and bizarre and evil and terrifying. The artistic vision, this is what I mean to say. The artistic vision kind of takes over the story, which in itself, I'd like to have some expansion on, maybe in another film or something. An interview at least, but is it even worth it at this point would be my question. What I mean is sometimes like the drone synth score, for example, seems to be guiding the film more than the story. You know, like how Barry Nile became to be the way he was is largely skipped. A very intriguing aspect of the story, if you ask me. It leaves one open to imagine all sorts of crazy things. In some scenes, I wanted to be explored further so much. Others could have had an extra 30 to 60 seconds left on the floor. I do wonder if the director, I believe is Panos Cosmatos, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing anything there. I do wonder if he looks back and says, I wish I could have told it this way, or gave a little more detail here, or maybe made a little inside joke type of thing here. A little more crazy killings, because there is a killing in here that just, it seemingly escalates to that level of violence and brutality very fast, and it almost feels like it comes out of nowhere. It does get you, got me at least. I do wonder if there's like a low-key audience for this film. You know, I know others have discussed it on YouTube and whatnot. They reviewed it, interpreted it, and all that, and everybody has the picture of the sentient. But is there like a cult following? You know what I mean? Again, this is another one of those films where I feel like it would be great to have a sequel that was in the right hands, that could tell the story a little different, articulate things a little more, and a little more subtlety on the effects, even though the style and presentation, like I said, color palette is just awesome. But all that's very unlikely at this point. All I can really hope for that is coming down the pipeline is somebody sees this movie and gets inspired by it to make their own fever dream. Either way, Elena and Barry Nile are two characters that have continued to remain strong in my memory ever since I was first introduced to them.
Do you read Sutter Kane?
We're leaving.